Hey there, Jackets fans. Welcome to Boom and Gloom, where we talk about the boom, the good, and the gloom, the bad, of Columbus Blue Jackets hockey. I'm Anthony. You may know me as Whaler Jacket in the social media world. And I want to say thank you for joining us today. This is going to serve as my season in review for the Blue Jackets 2023-2024 season. And I am very pleased to announce I have my very first ever in-studio guest. So Caden, super Blue Jackets fan, Caden is here. Hey, Caden.
Hey.
And we're just going to talk some Blue Jackets hockey and talk about the season that was and what's coming up, possibly this summer. So the first thing I want to do is kind of look back at the season and almost like give awards, like superlatives. I don't even know what the word is, but we're going to talk about some of the categories here. Starting off with most improved player. So I'm going to tell you who I think, and then we'll find out what Caden thinks. In my opinion, most improved player was Cole Sillinger. Now, we all know he had his sophomore slump last season, and I would even go as far as to say it was a disappointing second season for Cole Sillinger after the numbers he put up in his rookie year. But this year, we saw, honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of positives to look at this season.
No.
But Cole Sillinger, I thought, was definitely a positive. He didn't put up huge numbers. I mean, you look at his point totals, and it's in the 30s. So nothing that, blows the world away. But his overall game was just really just pleasing to watch. He seemed to be kind of getting himself to be a well-rounded player. Passer, back checker, mixing it up a little bit. So I would say Cole Sillinger is Columbus's most improved player this season. What about you, Caden?
I mean, I can't really argue with that. That's really the only answer I can think of if you ask me most improved. I was pretty concerned last year after the season he had. I was like, oh no, we had another bust. No. It's hard. I don't know. I feel like he plays like he's older than he is. Like he gives off the vibe. So you kind of forget how young he is.
How old is he? He was like 20?
Yeah, he's my age. He's 20.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. and that was his third year in the league.
Yeah. And you mentioned his point totals. It ended up being 32, which was 6th on the team. So that's honestly on the higher end.
Right. But yeah.
I liked him this season. I think he's coming along to be I see him as the third line center and a really good one at that can move up if necessary. And so I think he's on the right track to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot then, because if he is the third line center, where does Voronkov slot in then?
Well, I don't know. I liked having that Russian line.
Agreed.
So I would say that could just be the second line. But I think him and Sillinger could be interchangeable depending on what the coach wants. I said third line. I should have said middle six.
Middle six. All right. Yeah. I have a hope that he takes another step forward next year and he becomes the second line center that we've been hoping for, with Fantilli being the first line center. Whether that happens remains to be seen, but a guy can hope. That's about all we can have as Blue Jackets fans, is hope. So my next category is biggest surprise. So in my opinion, I'm going to go with somebody who did not join the Blue Jackets until much later in the season, close to the deadline, and that would be Nylander. I almost said William Nylander. Alex Nylander. So I don't think anybody could have predicted what Nylander did. I think it was 11 goals in 20 games or something like that, 22 games, 23, something like that. And I don't think anybody could have possibly predicted that. I think it's going to be kind of a choice that the new GM has to make, whether or not to bring him back and see if he can even come close to what he did in his short stay here in Columbus this season. But he was a huge surprise. I mean, I was just shocked that we gave up Bemstrom and we got this guy, and he threw in 11 goals in a very short amount of time. So what are your thoughts?
Again, can't argue with that. That's absolutely has to be the biggest surprise. Anyone would tell you that. I was happy with the trade if Nylander didn't play a single game. I thought, I mean, you've probably said this, you were a Bemstrom hater, that I was thrilled to get a pick, especially a third-round pick. I thought I was ecstatic to see the return. So anything Nylander did was already a plus in my eyes.
True.
And I was just shocked just every time I would see him score over and over again. And so, yeah, surprising is an understatement.
But I do have to mention, though, you said I was a Bemstrom hater. I never really hated him.
Bemstrom complainer.
Yes. Yes. He took over when Wenberg left, because I was a big Wenberg complainer. And I think since he left, Bemstrom was always my target for complaints. All right, next up. Biggest disappointment. Now, on a team full of disappointment, this is difficult to nail down. But I have one, and it's not going to be on many people's list, I don't think. But it was for me because I didn't know a whole lot about this player before he came to the Blue Jackets this year. So when I heard we were getting the Philadelphia Flyers top line defenseman, that's about all I knew. And so my biggest disappointment is Ivan Provorov. Now I'm saying that because I'm not saying he was a bad player. He did make a lot of mistakes at times. He did put up some points. I think he led the team for like the first week or two of the season. But overall, I think I was expecting in my mind a more defensive defenseman. And I don't think Provorov was that. So maybe he wasn't the biggest disappointment for the team, but he was the biggest disappointment to me. So who is your biggest disappointment?
Oh,
you can't say the whole team.
My biggest disappointment is probably Kent Johnson. I don't think he really took the step that we all kind of hoped that he would take. I don't feel like it was a terrible season for him, but I would have liked to see him step up more, put up more points. For Provorov and Severson too, I'll throw them together. I thought that it was both of them were stupid acquisitions. This team, I don't feel like we need offensive defensemen. I don't know why we gave up so much to get two of them. I mean, they produced decently. Severson had, what are my points? 28 points for 10th on the team. Provorov with 32 for 7th on the team. That's fine. I don't know. I feel like more often than not, I was looking at goals against and looking at who's on the ice, and it's one of those two guys doing something stupid. And I was like, well, why do we get these guys? I am disappointed, but I wouldn't say most on the team because they kind of have that reputation.
And that's what I didn't know that ahead of time.
With Severson especially, I was hearing from Devils fans when we got him that like he's really solid, except he's going to do the stupidest thing you've ever seen and costs you a goal every once in a while. And I feel like that was kind of what we got. A couple times where it was like, dude, what are you doing? And then solid enough otherwise.
Yeah, and I didn't even know. Like, you were the one who filled me in on this, that, Severson was more of an offensive-minded defenseman. And that's why I was kind of surprised as well, because it seems like the Blue Jackets, Yarmo at the time, brought in too many of the same guy.
Yeah.
We already had Werenski and Boqvist. But it's Boqvist. I could never say it right, isn't it?
So.
Boqvist. Because I want to say Nyquist. That was a W.
But there can be a V in. It could be Nyquist. I think it depends.
Okay.
There's an English version. It depends on what the player wants to use.
Well, him and then Provorov and then Severson, And even Bean, I thought, was very similar as well. So we all had like, it was 5 defensemen that are similar, and I just think we should have had more of a variety there. Okay, last one, team MVP. Again, on a team that struggled the whole season, we're gonna try to find a bright spot here. So before I say who I think was team MVP, I want to just define it. It's most valuable player, so most valuable to the team. And for me, I thought the most valuable was Boone. I thought he's still playing above what he should be playing. I mean, he's not, in my opinion, he should not be a number 1 center on an NHL team. So with that in mind, he put up numbers. He's not afraid to do the dirty work. He broke his jaw out 6 weeks or whatever it was, and was still top 5, I think, on the team in scoring, something like that.
He was second. Oh no, fourth.
Fourth, yeah. So all-star representative.
Second in goals.
He was captain of the team. So I would say he was the MVP. He was the most valuable player to the Jackets. What about you?
Well, before I say my actual pick, I will say I am not that it's a hot take, but I love me some Boone Jenner. He's basically everything you could ask for. He's in a leadership role. He can probably play anywhere in the lineup. Any 12 of the forward spots you could probably put him in with little to no issue. I also would like to get to a point where we don't need him on the first line, but he's done a great job producing in his position. I would say my MVP would probably be Werenski, though.
He would be second on my. Yes, I agree.
I mean, he 57 points as a defenseman,
and he missed like 12 games, didn't he?
Yeah, he only had 70 games played on a team that's not very good. Is pretty stellar to me, so I'd say he's my MVP pick.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he would have been second in my MVP voting.
Also, plus minus is not all that, but I'm looking at the roster right now, and we have 2 players that are not negative, both at 0. One of them is Werenski, and one of them is Brindley, who played 1 game. Everyone else is negative.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Yeah, so for Werenski to do that during this kind of season, I totally agree with your assessment there. Well, let's move on to our next topic, which is the GM search. So with some teams now that are out of the playoffs, I think the Jackets are going to start conducting some more formal interviews. And one name that seems to be at the top of a lot of people's lists, including mine, is Matthew Darche, assistant GM for the Tampa Bay Lightning. In my opinion, this should be a very short list of candidates. I know they said they had a whole big, huge list, but by this point, I'm hoping the Jackets have kind of at least whittled things down. I know they couldn't really have any formal interviews yet with some teams that are still in the playoffs, but in my mind, they should kind of have an idea right now of which direction they're headed. And in my opinion, I think Darche makes the most sense. He's the assistant GM right now for a very successful team. So he has had the front office experience. He's a former Jacket, which I think is great. And he's kind of on the younger side too. So I kind of like the idea of having a younger GM kind of who has experience, who might be more willing to kind of take some chances, take some risks, and build to where this team finally needs to be. So what do you think about Darche, or do you have somebody else in mind?
I've seen, I want to say his first name's Eric Tulsky from Carolina. Yep, he's their AGM too. I don't know much about assistant GMs around the league, so I can't act like I'm super knowledgeable here, but I would definitely like one of those guys as a hire, because the way I see it, anyone who has GM experience, that means they got fired at some point. So,
True.
Not that that's necessarily a no-go, but I would like to see a new guy who doesn't have that, like a clean slate. They have experience in the role, but they're not responsible for any problems. It's hard to say no to that. And so I would like those two guys. I don't know much about Darsh, but I've heard that Tulski is very big on analytics, which I personally like. I would like to see that.
And there's talk today, and I didn't read too much into it, but something about a deal fell through with Brindamore. So I've
actually heard that it's probably back on.
It's back on now?
Yeah.
All right, because there's, people are talking, bring in Tulski and then get rid of Vincent and bring in Brindamore. The chances, I think, of that actually happening are incredibly slim, but it is fun to think about. What is not fun to think about, again, in my opinion, is what I've heard today about John Tortorella being interested in the GM role with the Blue Jackets. I think that is a very unwise decision if the Jackets were to go that route, but I just don't see it happening. I don't. John Davidson said they are seeking someone very specifically with front office experience, and as far as I know, he doesn't have any of that. Tortorella does not have any front office experience. So he has experience in our organization, in the Jackets organization, from a coaching standpoint, but he doesn't know the ins and outs of front office work. He doesn't know the deal making, the cap structure stuff. Maybe doesn't have the relationships with other general managers. So I would think that's a bad idea to bring in Tortorella. No comment.
No, I mean no. I saw that and I was like, no way. I'd be my jaw would be on the floor if that happened.
Mine would too. Okay, so we're gonna move on to another section here, and this is a section I want, like a part of the show here that I want to talk about our gut feelings. All right, so I know the way your brain works, and some of the way my brain works is that we focus on we analyze. But for this, I want to kind of focus on our gut feeling, like what we think is going to happen. I just would like to point out to everybody that last year, at about this time, I was telling people that I had this gut feeling that Adam Fantilli would be a Blue Jacket. We did not win the lottery, and I still had the gut feeling that Adam Fantilli was going to be a Blue Jacket, and guess what? He was. So I'm kind of thinking I need to trust my gut here. So I'm going to throw some stuff at you, Caden, and we're going to talk about what our gut tells us. Is this going to happen or not? Okay? So first, is Pascal Vincent going to be the head coach of the Blue Jackets next year?
Yeah.
So Caden says yes, and my gut says yes as well. I don't necessarily want him to be, but that's just what my gut is telling me. I think, a new GM is going to come in, and he's going to get the opportunity to prove himself in his second year. He may not even last the season, but I see him as starting the year as the Jackets head coach. And again, that's just my gut. I'm not saying I want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. All right.
Can I elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, so for Vincent, here are my thoughts. I think Pascal Vincent deserves another shot as a head coach in the NHL.
Hot take.
I think it would have been very hard for anybody to succeed in the situation he was thrown into. So I would personally advocate for him getting another spot as a head coach in the NHL with the staff that he has picked. Whether or not that chance is next year in Columbus, it's kind of whatever to me. If he were to get fired, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Excited for the new guy. But he definitely deserves another go at it. I can't. He made some choices last year that I didn't like. he made some choices that I thought ended up being the right choice.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm kind of indifferent on that. I feel like there's not a lot of people out there that are indifferent on it, or I'm sure there are, but they're not commenting on social media threads and stuff about it. So I would like to see him get a chance with his staff if the new GM wants that, and I think they will, because he's only on contract for one more year, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, you're right.
So if they give him another chance and it was horrible, okay, whatever. Yeah. I would like to compete for a playoff spot next year, but
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's kind of up in the air whether or not that'll actually happen. So if it takes one more year to get there, I can put up with it.
Yeah, I could see that argument, and I know he was thrown into a tough situation. But counterpoint, my thinking is, did he show? All right, so he didn't have the prep time to be an NHL head coach before training camp. So you would think that he would have learned on the job, and by the end of the season, I should have been like, man, he's really come around. He's really made some strides. But I just didn't think that. I didn't get that feeling with him. So I'm one of those on the fencers. I'm not saying I want him fired. I'm not saying I want him kicked out. But at the same time, I'm not saying I really want him back. So.
Yeah.
Next one. This is a big one, okay? Do the Jackets, gut feeling here, finally win the draft lottery this year? Because, guys, my gut is telling me this is the year that they are going to win. So, what do you think? Are they going to win the draft lottery?
So I didn't feel as strongly, but I had the same feeling about Fantilli that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of have the same feeling again. But it's hard to not be pessimistic.
Of course.
When the league could just give it to Chicago or Utah.
Exactly. And I'm not a big believer. Like I've never been a big believer in all the talk about the draft lottery being rigged.
Yeah. I know it's not rigged, but okay, come on. I could have told you Chicago was getting Bedard 2 years ago.
And that's the thing. If Chicago wins it again or Utah wins, it's going to be kind of hard not to think it's rigged. I mean, that's just it's But like you said, I don't know how they would rig it. It doesn't seem possible. But if Chicago or Utah wins, you just have to think, oh my gosh, that's exactly what the league wanted.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. Gut feeling. Is Elvis a Blue Jacket at the start of camp next year? What do you think?
Oh, that's hard.
Gut feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think yeah.
So for me, it's a no. Like I think the new GM is going to come in, and that's going to be a top priority, is fixing the goaltending situation. And so, I guess a side question with that. All right, let's just say I'm correct. I'm not saying I am, but let's just say I'm correct. Do we go into the season with Tarasov Greaves as our tandem? What do you think?
I think we could.
I'm not super confident with that, but I would not hate it.
Yeah.
I would not hate it. I think that's...
I definitely wouldn't expect to be a playoff team with that tandem, but it wouldn't, instantly ruin the season to me. I'd still be excited to watch games and see how they do.
And going back earlier to what I said the most improved player was Sillinger, I think Tarasov could have been thrown in the mix there. I thought he really started
throughout
coming
the
on.
season, yeah.
So
he really did.
So he'd be my second choice for most improved.
I was ready to cut our losses on him halfway through the year. And then he turned it around.
I was too. All right, next question. Gut feeling. Provorov, is he a Jacket at the start of camp next year? Me, I think he's gone.
The start of the year?
Start of the year, yes.
I think yes. I think he's gone at the deadline.
Oh, okay. So he's going to be on the team when camp starts.
I think so.
Okay. I think he's going to be gone. I think that's one of the moves that the new GM is going to make. Jake Bean, what do you think? He's an RFA.
Gone.
Gone? Me too. Here's a hard one now. Patrick Laine. In my opinion, My gut is telling me he's gone. Now, I don't want to get into why he, went into the program or whatever, but I just have this feeling that he's gone. Now, whether or not that's at the start of the season, I don't know. But I really think the new GM coming in, that's going to be one of the big moves that he makes. Is Patrick Laine is going to go at some point.
I could see it happening at some point. I don't think it'll happen by the start of the year. I think if he's playing hockey at all, it'll be in Columbus. I think his value is too low to trade at this point. I don't think we'd have to give up so much to get rid of him. Unless and I could be wrong, maybe other GMs still see the potential and are happy to give up assets for him, but he has a fairly large contract. He didn't have a very good season. He didn't have a very good season the year before, and now he's in the player assistance program. If I'm another GM, I'm not giving up assets for an unknown like that just to hope he rebounds.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I can't imagine they get rid of him.
Well, I'm thinking, again, maybe not the start of the year. Maybe, I think maybe he'll be there and then show that he can play, and then he gets unloaded. Is Nylander given a contract? I say yes. I think he's done enough, and it will cost the team a minimal amount of money to do like a prove-it contract. So I think we'll see him back.
I absolutely say yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would hope so. If the if the new GM doesn't offer him a contract, I don't know what he's doing.
Next question. Got two more here. Do the Jackets bring in a big name free agent? For me, I don't know if it's going to be a big name, but I do think that the Jackets are going to get somebody bigger. Like, it's not just going to be some fourth liner. We're going to get like a middle six type player. That's just what my gut tells me.
I could see that. I want to say they probably will. Again, it's hard to say when you don't know who the GM's going to be and what they're going to want to do.
Yeah, agreed.
But like I don't think they're going to be bringing in like Stamkos or anybody like that. But I could see a middle sixer, just like you said.
Unless
they could bring back Wenberg. He's a UFA.
Oh gosh, no. We're still paying him. We're still
That'd
paying
be kind
him.
of funny.
And if it's Matthew Darsh, maybe he does bring in Stamkos.
But at the same time, I don't know. Like in terms of the forwards, unless you're getting that first line center again, where would they go?
See, I don't know. I've argued that we have our centers right now. That we
Just
have
a waiting game.
Yes, we have Fantilli, Sillinger, Voronkov, Corrali. There's our four centers right there, with people who can fill in if needed. But like you said, waiting game. We don't know.
Maybe a defenseman. I could see it. If I had to guess, we'll sign a defenseman.
Okay,
that's my official prediction.
We're gonna get to that in just a moment. But one last question here: are the Jackets playing meaningful games in March next season?
I'd say yes, but I said yes this year, so we'll see.
See, I say no. I think the Jackets are gonna show improvement. They'll be an improved team, but March rolls around and we'll be out of it. Maybe we won't be out in November like we were this year, or October even, but I don't think we'll be playing meaningful games in March, unfortunately. So, all right, last segment here we're going to talk about. With a new GM coming in, there's obviously going to be some changes, and sometimes those changes are going to hurt. I think there's going to be players that they're our team, they're our players. We want them to succeed here, but the fact is they're not succeeding, and there's going to be some tough changes coming, I think. So I'm trying to think who is going to be moved. Like, as the new GM, if I were coming in as the general manager, who are the people that I feel I could move out to try to bring in the right pieces? I mean, in order to get those right pieces, you have to pay for them in some way. And usually that means moving out a player, making a roster spot. So I thought of a few that I think that the Jackets could be moving out, and some of them hurt. And one of them, top of my list right now, is Justin Danforth.
Oh no!
I know. Well, I considered him like my favorite player at the start of the season, so I like the guy. I'm not trying to say, I want to get rid of him, but looking at our roster, especially with some of the other smallish guys coming up, with Brindley and Malatesta, there's only so many small guys you can have on your team. And Danforth has shown he can hang with the best of them. I mean, he can do the dirty work in the corners, put in a goal every once in a while. I mean, he even played on the top line with Gaudreau for a while, so he's showing he's capable of moving in and moving up and down the roster as needed. So I think he might be enticing, relatively inexpensive player that another team might take on in exchange for some draft picks. Another's Texier. I've looked at Texier, and it's hard for me to find another more average NHL player than Alex Texier. So I could see him being moved out. As I said earlier, Line A. And then here's my dark horse. This one really hurts. But again, there's going to be moves that hurt. And that is Kent Johnson. I'm not saying I want him moved. I'm trying to look at this from an analytical perspective. He's a smallish player. He has tons of potential. So a new GM might trade that potential for someone, a different piece of the puzzle, maybe a veteran, because I really think this team needs some veterans. So that's what I think about forwards. And then I also think on defense, Provorov might be moved out. And then I think one of either Bean or Boqvist needs to be moved to make room, because defense should be a top priority for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of defensemen right now. So we're going to have to get rid of somebody to bring somebody in. So those are my choices. What are yours?
I pretty much the exact same things you said.
Yes.
I'm looking at the rosters right now, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking who doesn't have a place? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have your fourth liners that I really like. You have like Matthew Olivier.
Yes.
I love Matthew Olivier. I mean,
He has grown on me big time.
obviously that's the kind of guy who could get sent out very easily, but I like having him on the roster.
I want them to keep him as like the extra forward.
Absolutely. Bring him in for the games against those tough physical teams.
Yep.
And then obviously you have guys that you see as like the core of the future that you don't want to get rid of. Your Sillinger, your Kent Johnson, if you feel that way, and then all the Russian guys. And I agree. I think Texier is kind of the odd man out. I think he's pretty average, just like you said. I mean, he's 24. He could still grow a bit as a player, but I feel like he's probably reaching his ceiling.
Yep.
And that ceiling is probably a third liner.
Yeah.
And I like Texier, but I feel like he's kind of capped out. We have plenty of players that can play on the third line, and he's not doing anything that any of those other guys can't. And since he is young, he still probably carries a decent amount of trade value.
Yep.
And you get something for him.
He's relatively cheap. I mean, he's not that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a free agent?
He's a restricted free agent.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah. That kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, could do a sign and trade there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
All right. So then to tie in with all this, then I just wanted to talk real quick about our defense. Like, what is our defense going to look like next year? So I want to show you what my defense, if it was up to me, what it looks like, and you tell me what you think. So I'm operating under the assumption that 2 of our current defensemen need to be moved out to make room for Juracek and Matejchuk, but also to make room for a more of a shutdown veteran defenseman to come in. So with that in mind, here's what I'm thinking: Werenski, Boqvist, Severson, Goodbranson, Juracek, and new guy. Those are our 6, with Blankenberg, Matejchuk, Christensen kind of as the seventh defenseman. So those are my thoughts on defense. Any thoughts for you?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think Provorov is probably on his way out. Maybe not at the start of the year, but by the end of it. So that spot will open up. And I think Bean's probably gone too. Well, he's a restricted free agent right now, right? Yeah. Yep. So I think he's gone by opening day. I would like to see them bring in a new guy who can play on the defensive side.
Exactly.
Because right now, I feel like our only defensive-minded defenseman on the roster is Goodbranson.
Yep.
And I've actually become a big Goodbranson fan.
I have too.
I love what he brings in terms of like leadership and physicality, but he's not exactly an outstanding hockey player at the NHL level. So I love having him on the roster, but I don't think he can be the only guy that is a defensive defenseman.
Totally.
You need someone there who can shut down the opposing offenses, really.
Now, what does Juracek kind of like? What is his prognosis or whatever? Is he supposed to be an offensive guy, or is he more of a shutdown guy?
I think he's more of an offensive guy.
Okay.
I feel like everything I've heard from him is his point totals. Like I think he was point per game in Cleveland, which is like, yeah, that's really good. Mm-hmm. But we need guys who can play defense.
So so that just makes it even more of a importance that we bring in somebody defensive minded.
I can't say I'm too knowledgeable on our defensive prospects right now. Maybe Matejchuk or I liked Svozil. Mm-hmm. Maybe one of them is that guy. For all I know, that could be the answer. But I would definitely like to sign somebody on D.
And I think we will.
I'm looking at your setup, and I see pretty much the same thing. I think Juracek probably makes the lineup. Werenski's obviously not going anywhere. Severson's not going anywhere either, for better or worse. Yep. And I would like to keep Goodbranson. So really your options to get to move are Provorov, Bean, Boqvist.
Yep.
And so I think Bean and Provorov are the obvious two. Unless somebody wants Boqvist. Because
offers up a good price.
He's pretty young too still. He has pretty good numbers. His only real downside is that he's injury prone.
Until he changes his number to 3.
Yeah. Maybe that's the solution. Maybe we're going to have 82 games and he's going to put up 60 points. We'll see. So I think you listen to offers on Boqvist, but I wouldn't shop him.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Boqvist too. Yep. And he is changing his number to 3. Did you hear that?
I didn't know it was 3, but I knew he was changing his number.
Yeah, I guess that's like it was his junior number or something. So
does he know about the curse? Did we find out about that?
Yeah, they said he read Twitter and that's how he heard about it. Yeah. So, all right, one final thought before we get out of here. Just wanted to wish Aaron Portzline best of luck in his recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
I that was just an amazing story to read about the living donor. Just awesome. Just awesome to hear. I've actually, I'll admit, years back, I was never a huge fan of Portzline, but he just totally stepped it up this year. I mean, he called it like it is, and he did some excellent reporting. I loved his podcasts, so I was just over the moon to hear about the good news. So we wish him the best. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Did you have any other comments, anything else you wanted to say before we wrapped it up? Any other
I had
words of wisdom?
But it's gone now. So, no.
All right. Well, if it ever comes back, you are welcome to join us again as a in-studio guest. So, well, guys, we will wrap it up for now. I'm not sure how often that I'll be doing this with the off season, taking shape right now. But hopefully, once the Jackets get a new GM and some news starts coming in, I'll jump back on here and talk at you again. So, thank you very much for joining us, and hope you'll come back another time. If I don't hear from you in a while, have a great summer. But like I said, I'll come back as soon as we have some CBJ news to talk about. Thanks for joining us, Caden.
My pleasure.
We'll see everybody next time. Go Jackets.
Go Jackets.